Firstly, hello to you, my darling, darling listener. It's just literally you and me today. No music, nothing, just you, me, and this microphone. So you're going to keep noticing, but I'm clearing my throat today because I've got a bit of a cold, but hopefully I won't be doing that down your ear hole the whole time. So I'm sitting here with a list of points in front of me. You could kind of say it almost feels like a board meeting agenda, actually. I've just come from all day today having a board meeting at work, absolutely manically busy. But I wanted to come on to share some thoughts with you today, and I've been thinking about this episode. You know, what do I do next with the spirit world inspiring me all the time? And I just wanted to say a number of things. So from the heart, really, to you today about me, my experiences, this podcast, things that have happened to me. And I've learned a lot of lessons recently, and I've kind of grappled with a lot of things on this podcast. And I'm going to start with that because when I started it, I have now come to realise that my granddad, who you know as a medium here, you know that if you've been listening for a while. But, you know, it's really interesting because actually he was a medium, and you'd think that I would have grown up, you know, I was fascinated by the spirit world, but all the funny stories about plant pots spinning around in my nan's house, you know, I'd hear stories about all sorts of the fact they had to move out of the house. So if anything, I was a bit scared of the spirit world because my granddad always said to me, you know, never to mess around with a Ouija board, but that's because we were damn curious about them and wanted to do them. And not that I've got anything against Ouija boards. I would never, ever do one for the simple fact that my granddad always told me not to do one. And I don't think I need one because I've got the spirit world around me all the time. I don't need a board to suddenly get a mover out. But I wanted to reflect on a few things in the last episode. And, you know, I do reflect on these things often because a lot of the time you're learning a lesson on the podcast. But I'll tell you this, so am I. So I'm learning many lessons on the podcast, actually. But I can't tell you that. So it's an education for both of us there. But I was reflecting on the past episode with the lovely Christine, and she said a couple of things that kind of dawned out to me, or when I listened back to some of the little clips that I put out on YouTube sometimes. And there was something I said about the spirit world sort of giving me the answers recently for everything. And she sort of very sternly told me the spirit world don't give all the answers for everything. So I wanted to come on because what is this podcast all about? It's about me helping you. You know, this is not a ego-driven project. It is to help people on their journey because I feel that the spiritual world is put on a bit of a Hollywood kind of platform. And for years, I would think that I'm not a medium because I'm not whiter than white. You know, I would smoke, drink wine, whatever it is, and I would think that there was a certain standard because I think that. And I understand why in the mediumship world people are put on a platform because, you know, you're sort of thinking, oh, this person's got a connection to the spirit world. You know, it's almost like you want to put that person on a kind of altar. So what can happen in this environment is people let go of their own power because firstly, everyone is connected to the spirit world. You cannot not be connected to it. You are connected to it. And what I've realised is for so long on this podcast, and the reason I had to take a break from it in the middle was because I was getting all these wonderful, wonderful people on telling me about all these things. And quite frankly, I needed time to go away and integrate a lot of these things because I was myself actually feeling like I was just the more I knew, the more I didn't know, which is obviously the case because we're a seeker. We're never going to know the truth, and to be curious is what we need to be. But I would feel that if I didn't read a whole book, I wouldn't know something. But that book was someone else's opinion, you know. And recently I was given signs by my granddad that I need to stop that. You know, my way is not to pick up a book and read it because I've got ADHD brain. I don't read a book fully. I sort of but I would say I'm a bad reader because I would say I don't finish the book. Well, I don't need to finish it. I just need to pick up what I need in that moment of what I feel. So I've been on my own journey of this mediumship, and I've talked about the difficulties of my 20s, and actually, to be honest with you, this is an important point, Soulsync. I have to tell you this, my dears. I have told you bits, but it's because of the fact that this podcast it is not really about me. It's very easy to hide behind guests and, bring people on that I think can help you. But the most ironic thing of all is I feel I can help you, but for too long I've said I'm, training to be a medium. Well, I am a bloody medium. So I've got many things. Actually, I've only got about 5 things on this list, but I've already not got to the first one. So I was reflecting on the past episode, and the spirit world, yes, have been around me all the time at the moment. All the time. And they have been giving me the answers to a lot of things. But I'm, like I said, skeptical. I am very evidence-based. So, I'm not an easy horse to lead to water. Let's just say that in the mediumship world. But for so long, I didn't really understand what the power was, what it felt like. And what I understand about the power now is I wasn't even allowing myself to be helped. The spirit world, and I can go on, there's so many different examples I can give, but it's not going to mean, anything to you necessarily because it's my story, and the synchronicity only means something to me because it's how that synchronicity feels to me. Because this is the thing, people would tell me, oh, I've seen a sign from the spirit world. And then someone would say, oh, I saw a number plate. And I'd be thinking, well, okay. When we get a sign, we're kind of thinking, oh, we need to be having this crazy thing. Actually, now I'm accepting of this. I see signs absolutely bloody everywhere. And I know they're a sign because I feel it, because I'm now in my mediumship power. So the first thing I wanted to really talk about, and I'm going to have to talk about the power so much on this podcast because the power is the power that's available to us. So what do I mean by the power? I mean the God force of the universe that runs through us all. That's what we are. But a lot of these concepts, I've always had a way with words. And one thing I really love is language. Not that I'm, like I said, I'm not a big reader. Oh, yeah, I've loads of books. But if you looked at my bookshelf, it looks very, well, you can tell, a lot of them haven't been read. I pick them up, put them down, pick them up, put them down. Like, I must read that. But again, now I just pick up what I need. So something happened to me the other night, and I'm going to say this because this is a caveat because I want to let you a bit more into my world. And my personality type is very caring and really, I'm a kind person, but I'm also, my background was growing up, being gay, being in the police, many things that, you go through in your life, in your experience, in our journey, we do. And, we have a certain way that we perceive the world. And I'm actually a very private person generally, and that's kind of, this podcast goes against the very grain of the essence of who I am in a lot of ways. Yes, I come across very charismatic, and I love people. I absolutely love people, but I'm not the sort of person that would sit, and talk about myself, if I'm honest, all the time. But what I've realized is if I'm going to really help you, the listener, then I need to, do that. And I feel I can help you a lot. So I want to talk about something that happened to me the other day. And I'm going to have to talk about these things. I'm having to accept that on the Soul Sync because I want to help you, lovely people. And, there's been many things on this podcast recently, the email inbox, there's just been a lot of synchronicities. Let's say I can tell the spirit world is touching this podcast all over. And, you'll see and feel and hear that, hopefully, as the episodes progress, because there is some really interesting. I want to bring the spirit world onto this podcast to talk to you directly. I can go down a lot of rabbit holes on this episode today, but even trance, for instance, trance is only something that's reserved for mediums because it's only done in front of mediums, and it means I have many thoughts, Soul Sync, many thoughts. But even, where does trance sit in the community? And, if we even look at spiritualist churches at the moment, and I'm going to start sharing more of my thoughts on this podcast, but, I never want to upset anyone. I want to always say the right thing because I'm very caring. I'm very, very caring. But I need to share thoughts with you because I'm doing you, the listener, a disservice by not stepping into my power and talking to you honestly and candidly. So that's important to me. So I'm going down rabbit holes now. I can't even remember what I was bloody meant to be talking about. But what I wanted to say, trance. I was talking about trance. So, even trance, for instance, it's done in front of mediums. But when we go to spiritualist churches, I've been to a spiritualist church for a Sunday service because we are governed by the lottery on where we live. And I'm not going to start talking about my spiritualist church because it's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful, lovely place, lovely people. I absolutely love them. But what is the spiritualist churches doing after, the spirit world? For them to prove life after death is very basic, because that is just the tool used to prove to someone that life exists after death, or what happens after that. Once someone's understood that, the spirit world has proved that and provided solace, which is the beautiful thing of mediumship. That's, when I realised that, it sent me down a rabbit hole of wanting to know so much. But I feel like even with, the prophecy part of mediumship, the beauty of, I've seen so many wonderful trance mediums channel through the spirit, where the spirit will talk directly to the people in front. And you always notice, I've noticed this with trance, this is the thing, that how the spirit kind of comes through is, if you've never seen trance before, obviously, every experience is unique and different. So I can only ever speak to you from what I've seen and heard, but I will tell you that. But from what I've seen and experienced of trance, it always touches every single person in the room. And, a very wise old soul told me that that's because the intelligence of the spirit world, when they come through, they're coming through to help. And they will use the collective consciousness of the room to try and make sure that the words that come through touch everyone. And they do. Whenever I've seen trance, if it's done authentically, it touches everyone, because the spirit will come through with so much insight. They've lived this life. Not every spirit, some spirits are never been incarnated. So this is the thing, we could go down many rabbit holes here. However, it's even made me realise that, okay, the spirit will want to help us, and I have become incredibly aware of how much they want to help me. Like, they could have not helped me more in recent times, and I could sit here for a whole hour telling you about various things. But in the interest of keeping one's attention, because you'll just trail off, because it's all just about things in my life, and I'd have to explain to you about an hour's worth of stories but they touched me is the important thing. So what am I on a mission here to do on this podcast is to bring to you as much value as possible from this world and the other world that is all around us to you. Now, we're going to hear from people that aren't just mediums on this podcast, but it's people that I feel are heart-centered, that I feel are going to help you on your journey, because a great deal of thought, time, consideration goes into the people I bring on. And some of the people on the podcast are people that listen to it. And I love that. So, but it's all designed to help you. So on that note, you will find, and I want to make a pledge to you, because these things are very important on the whole purpose of why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to help get the love and the message of the spirit world out there to you, because they want to help people on their journey. But at the moment, the most beautiful parts of mediumship are being done behind closed doors in front of mediums, that, and I understand that, but I feel that, so I want to evolve the way that things can be done and challenge, think outside the box on things. So, and that recent episode where Brother Francis came through, really made me think about the concept of how, spirit can be brought to life for you in a way that perhaps, I can't tell if it's been done before or not, because I don't know, but that's what I feel the spirit world are inspiring me to want to do. And I feel they're inspiring me in many different ways in regards to this podcast. So what you will, hopefully it will touch your heart, that when you listen to episodes, hopefully you can feel that love of the spirit world, even if it's not directly related to that episode. There'll be hopefully some elements of infusion, but I encourage you not to think about it, but to feel it, and that's the problem, the human experience. We spend so much time in our minds, and our minds can be a very challenging place even to get grip of one's thoughts. So anyway, I want to tell you a bit of a story because it was something that really upset me the other day, actually. So I'm not going to go into specific details about this, but the long and short of it was I arranged a spiritual matter event, you might want to say, and it was something that was very important to me. But recently, things in my life, honestly, have been crazy. I've been getting inspiration from the spirit world to do things, do this, do that, do this. I already run at 1,000,000 miles an hour sometimes. But, that in amongst all the other things, running a business, whatever, court cases, all stuff I'm sure you'll find out about in very good time on this podcast. If I start talking a bit more, that is, and I want to do that. And I want to come on once a week to share, reflections from my heart, things that have helped me on many different topics. As I said, if you want me to, maybe, and everything I'm going to tell you this now is from my experience. It's, the way I perceive things. I don't tell you to take the way I say it. In actual fact, I don't encourage you to pick what, resonates with you. Not everything should resonate with you, because it, if you does, then you're surrendering your power to me as some kind of guru. And I'm not a guru. I am someone who, falls down the same pitfalls as we all do in life, and someone that has the same challenges we all do. That's why I'm not on some beauty pageant on Instagram or whatever it might be, because I could give two hoots what I look like on a selfie right now. And to be quite frank, I don't think you'd want to see a selfie of me right now. So anyway, so recently arranged this event, really mattered to me. I was the technical wizard. And anyway, there was a technical issue with it, and I was having a meltdown because I got locked out the Zoom room. Everything you could just imagine that must have went wrong. And I've tried there with all my buttons to keep it all under control. And then what happened was I thought my mic was muted even. Then I was effing and jeffing, swearing and whatever, and these are very... these events, it was a spiritual event. And then I came back on none the wiser, sort of had a speech, was even being a bit funny and lighthearted to try and, move the event along. And then afterwards, I'm sort of doing a close, totally unaware. I was sort of wondering as I was doing it, because I'm very, with ADHD, people who've got ADHD, you've got autism, whatever, you'll understand the term masking. We'll talk about it. But, I'm very perceptive to how people are receiving me because, through, and I'm not going to go into the whole ADHD thing now because we could be here for another hour. But... I kind of sensed, of course I sensed there was someone, but I was thinking it was more of a reaction about, the technical glitches. Anyway, that night I was absolutely heartbroken. Crying my eyes out of what a fool I felt I'd been. Lots of emotion from my dad came through. And I did say in the previous episode that when my dad came through in that reading, I said it didn't bring any tears. And I do want to address that point because it's brought me lots of tears. But... in that moment, now, do you know what? I'm not even going to go into that on this episode because that's going to open up another whole can of worms, and it is something I will address, but there's been lots of tears. Anyway, that to one side, I learned a valuable lesson, and I felt the lesson that I was shown the other day was the ultimate lesson, which is probably what's stopping me from talking about a lot of things on this podcast, probably what's holding me back in my development, even though my mediumship has come on. I feel like I've had several mediumship upgrades overnight. I feel like I've gone from dial-up internet to 5G. But anyway, and I'll talk about that because it's interesting. But I learned the ultimate lesson, but I need to stop giving about what people think. And how much time do we waste in our lives worrying about what other people think? I could do a whole episode just on that. You can't change what people think. You can try, but you can't change what someone thinks. And we spend so much of our life worrying. And, you know, as a lot of people that listen to this podcast, I imagine if I was to put a poll button on there right now and say, how many of you, you know, yes or no, do you think about what other people think once a day? I'm sure, you know, overwhelmingly the poll button would be lighting up. Not that I've got a facility to do that yet, he says. So, you know, I learnt that lesson, and it was a lesson that made me think I need to step into that power on this podcast, and I need to stop giving a about what people think, because it's doing, you know, you a disservice, because it's stopping me talking. So, you know, I think you can understand why I wanted to come on and say that. But what I wanted to say in this podcast is, what the hell am I doing this for? Because it's ad-free. I will never run ads on this podcast. The only ads you'll ever have is ads that's from me, not from products, which means the podcast costs money because it's not making any money, but it's about adding value to you. I don't want to have adverts running in the podcast and then people think, oh, it's all about, you know, money. No, it's not about money. Money is never a factor in this podcast. It's about helping you. I feel that my mission on this podcast is to, you know, use me and, you know, try my best, you know, try to bring, you know, the inspiration of the spirit world through to you, because they can help you much more than I can. I tell you that, much more. I'm down here trying to navigate this life. They're up there, you know, with the bird's eye view, so to speak. So that's what I wanted to say. This podcast is heart-led and it is designed to help you. And in the coming episodes, I'm going to share a lot of personal experiences, and there's so many things I could talk about on this podcast. Could be my actual story, could probably be about 3 best-selling books. It'd be the bloody page turner of the year, I'm sure, if I could be bothered to sit down and write it all. But I'll happily talk about it with you. So there's lots of interesting stories. And why do they matter? Because they really prove a point. And, you know, it's the old thing of being a bit wiser. You know, you look back and I see so much synchronicity and signs in things. And I want to help you on that journey to do that too, my darling listener. So I'm just looking at my agenda. Have I got anything else left? Oh no, I just got back big capital letters, stop giving a shit. So that was a point, so I'll repeat that one. But I just wanted to say to you that, you know, it matters very deeply to me. And, you know, I don't want to share people's personal experiences on this podcast, but, you know, some of the emails I've had to move a box of tissues onto my desk at times, you know, and it's really warming to hear that, because so many of you, you know, are sending me emails about things I feel that are just passing comments. And, you know, even recently there's been missing person requests coming in, all sorts of really interesting things. So I feel that, you know, this episode today is to kind of tell you that, you know, it's not easy to, I think sometimes it's even hard to look in the mirror some days, isn't it? Let's be honest, let alone sit in front of a microphone talking to myself. And the thing is, talking to a guest, I have to say, it's much easier because there's a level of bounce. I actually found when I first started this podcast, the hardest thing to do is to just sit in front of a mic and chat, because you get all the ego things coming in. And, you know, by not talking, then I'm not helping you because I'm not sharing my experiences. So, you know, it's a bit of pot kettle black, isn't it? So think of it, pot kettle black. But I want to say there's a lot of people that deeply care about this podcast in the spiritual community. My commitment to you as well is I will try my best to always put people in front of you that I genuinely feel will help you in some way. I encourage you not to surrender your power, to think that someone is a guru. You know, if you like what they say, take what they say. You might like what they say today. You might not agree with it tomorrow. Your opinion will change. You will evolve. You are all on your own journey. So I encourage you to be curious. You know, I remember when years ago I was listening to podcasts, I would find myself hooked on every word. You know, this is how it works. And then years later I think, well, actually, you know, all I'm doing is again surrendering my power. So that's what I wanted to kind of say in essence to you today, my darling listener. And I just wanted to also say that there is some exciting things coming up with this podcast. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's ideas that I have on how it can evolve beyond a guest coming on, just giving you 1 hour, because you can't get a lot in an hour really and scratch the surface. So I want to do courses and things that are workshop-esque, because these episodes, I don't keep my eyes glued to the analytics, I'm going to be fair, but I have noticed a common theme that the episodes that are workshop inspired, people love them, and I understand why they love them, because I would love them too. They would be the ones I would pick out, because you're looking for help, and I understand that. And that's why, you know, your emails are also very helpful, what you're thinking at times as well. So I even feel like I want to play an outro now. I want to get some dramatic tune on to finish this off, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to leave it here.